Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our next speaker, Mikhail Larchanka, presenting the topic, Seamless Automation, Transform Your Data Processing with Azure Data Factory.
Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation, and this is the description of it. I don't think you need to read it. Yeah, it's just for people who missed everything on the website. Let me introduce myself. My name is Mikhail, the left one in the white hoodie here. And I work in a company called Cytec in Netherlands. It's let's say outstaff company, and my current client is a bank. I'm 38 years old. I'm Belarusian. I have experience around 20 years, so I built my first website in 2000. And I live with a wife, kid, cat. Yeah, I made this presentation a bit early, so hamster is already sad, but and a couple of fishes. Still have them. I have all social networks you can imagine. It's on the website, or on the slide I have here YouTube, Twitter, and Telegram. But it's in Russian, so if you don't speak, then just don't go. Our plan for today is we have introduction. I just finished it. We have challenge. You will see what is challenge. We have a solution for this challenge. Key features of the solution, benefits. Then we will talk about the price of this solution and the conclusion. I feel really bad. Friends of mine said, "Don't tell you have a hangover." I have a hangover. Challenge. Where's my water? Yeah. Thanks a lot. Oh. Challenge. Usually, when there are two types of people who can speak about software development. Regular people, they are not related to the development, they are users. And when they talk about software development, they usually talk about like social networks, different applications they know. They don't know how it's built inside, but they know these are the things I'm using, and this is software which was developed. When the second group of people who talk about development, if they talk, they are literally developers. So we are, and we usually talk about development from the perspective of performance, or like creation of something beautiful, maybe design, UX, UI. You know all these conferences, so people just come there and like, yeah, let's talk how good and how quick we can build an application. And then we also discuss frameworks, we discuss libraries on top of this, and other stuff which is related to the development. But there is one more thingy in the software development which people barely talk about. It's data flow, or data transformation, or data something. So when we see development, we see interfaces, we know there is some kind of backend doing something. When we do a request, it sends information. But also, we have a lot of stuff which happens, and we don't know, we don't see it's happening. We don't call it this stuff. We don't like interact with this. Usually it's called data flows, as I said, and it's something which automatically happens on the backend. Oh, back. Yep, still here. And we don't discuss data flows on the conferences. Usually we don't discuss them between each other. They just build somewhere there and they just work. And the most known probably example of the data flows is the cron jobs. Who ever wrote cron jobs? Yeah, simple ones. Yeah, you just write a script, you set up the schedule for the script, and it just runs in there. And there are a lot of problems with them, but usually it looks like this. You have your source, somewhere you have your data, then you have your script, which once a day, couple of times per day just runs, grabs data from the source, transforms it in a way you need, and pushes to some kind of target. And source, it can be whatever you want. It can be database, REST API, it can be Amazon storage, Azure Data Lake, FTP server, whatever. Cron job, as I said, is just a script which does all this data transformation and manipulations. And the target can also be whatever you want. It can be another database, it can be some API, FTP server, SSH connection, etc. And then when you work with this, you face with the issues. So to build a cron job, it's not a big deal. You just write your script, you have source, you have target, it works. But then if you write something complex and you have issues with it, you face with the problems. So you have limited functionality. Of course, you can write whatever script you want, and it will be working. But how to say it? It's really hard to combine if you have many sources and many targets for your cron job. For one job, it's really hard to combine them, and you are kind of limited slightly. Boom. Come on. Then when you work with the cron jobs, you should do everything manually. You need to manually write it, you need to manually configure it, and then it just runs. Especially if you are, let's say, not really skilled in the Linux or Unix systems, it can be also a problem. Oh, damn, hangover. Monitoring and logging. Because cron job is just a script which runs, for example. So if you want to log it, you need to implement some special mechanism. If you want to monitor it, you just probably cannot do it. Availability and high availability. This is also a pain. If you, for example, run some kind of server and you run cron job on this server, it means you are limited with the performance of this server. And if you need more performance, more resources, you cannot just get them from the server you rent. And then if you just rent a server and it has an issue, your provider has an issue, or you just don't fit in, or like it has some downtime. So if provider doesn't work, your application also doesn't work. Your cron job doesn't work because computer which is a host of your script is just stopped. And also limited error handling. Yeah, the same reason as we had with monitoring and logging. It's just hard to do with the situation when you have just a script which runs in some specific period of time. And we try to find the solution. There's everything in software development. We're trying to find a solution for the problems we create ourselves. So we find a thing called cron job, and we decided, yeah, let's just do cron jobs. And then we found it's not a bad thingy, and we started to search for the solutions. And here you can see the list of probably most popular today solutions, except one which I will talk about in the future. But we have things created by different companies. We have AWS Glue, data pipelines, Cloud Data Fusion, Oracle Data Flows. So we have some things which can replace cron jobs because they're not ideal. And I'm gonna talk a bit about Azure Data Factory. It's another solution built by Azure, by Microsoft, of course, which allows you to create scheduled tasks or even non-scheduled tasks, which will do a data flows, which will just transform the data from the sources with the specific requirements and push it to the target. And usually when we talk about data factories or some other analogs, we are thinking about something like DevOps thingy or data platform engineers. And because I'm not a data engineer, platform engineer, or DevOps, I will tell you about this from the developer's perspective. And I think we should start from pros. What's good in the data factories or analogs of the data factories? Why we want to use them? Why I will show how they work. They're really like easy to use. And the thing here is you don't write your code in data factories as you did for cron jobs. You can use interfaces. Of course, you can still use manual writing. You can write your code or configurations, but you have interface. And with an interface, you have just a drag and drop thing, which is much easier. So if you are not really experienced developer, you just turn on computer, go to Azure, to ADF Azure.com, and just drag and drop elements and provide URLs. So it's much easier than just opening a file and writing the whole big script in there. Scalability, because it's Azure, so it means if you need small amount of resources, it will use small amount of resources. But if your demand grows, it means that Azure will automatically extend your resources and you will have always enough. And if we will compare with the cron jobs I mentioned before, you have hosting with 512 megabytes of RAM, and you need 1 gigabyte, you will have 512. It will not just scale automatically. Integration. When we're talking about Azure, we usually assume it's a huge platform which has a lot of stuff built in. And it means that when you build a data factory, you can integrate it with everything Azure has inside. With the cron jobs, if you want to integrate it with something which is outside of your scope of your you need to integrate everything manually. So if you want to connect to source and it has some firewall, you need manually go to this firewall. That's bad. Oh, too much alcohol yesterday. So integrations, and it's pretty simple. Then monitoring and management. Azure Microsoft provides you all the tools. You have login systems. You can attach additional login mechanisms on top. You can manage your application. You can run, restart it, and see how it works. Again, you can just extend it and send to different within the Microsoft, you can run it on the different servers in different countries. which is pretty cool. And because Azure, as a normal as a big, huge company, it also provides you ability to run it closer to your consumers. And if your consumer is in States, for example, it will be run close to to them in States. If it's in Europe, it will be ran in Amsterdam, for example, or Frankfurt. Advanced transformations. Uh, The thing with the data flows is that you can have multiple sources and you need to combine sources based on some things, and you will have kind of extended data. For example, you have information about whatever, information about some kind of, let's say, about some tool, and you have additional information about this tool in some other sources, and you want to grab this all information, combine it all together, and show it to the user in the end. So with the Azure or analogs from AWS or Google Cloud, it's usually much easier because they have already this built-in transformations done by other developers. You just reuse them. And I think it's better to see the real example instead of like listening to me. So I will not show you live coding. It's always during the presentation, it always breaks. So I just made a lot of screenshots and we will go through them. So that's how our cron jobs are looking. Again, we have a source, we have some kind of script, which is your job, and then you have your target where you push the result of the transformation. When we talk about data factories or Alex, you have just data factory instead of cron job. So the overall idea is the same. Still source, something here, target. Created two endpoints. One is a source endpoint, one is a target endpoint. Hosted it. And for the source, for example, for the example, I've created a basic house. And for the target, we have it's source information. And for the target, we have another endpoint with OAuth 2 authentication. And we need to run this this example I will show once a day at 1. This is the interface of Data Factory. I don't have my own account in there, so I was using my work accounts. That's why I blurred it slightly, and you will see I blurred some other information here. And this is an interface of the Data Factory. When you just enter it, it's completely empty. And on the left, you have navigation where you can select what exactly you wanted to create, and on the right side where the blank space is, you just build your data factory. In Azure Data Factory, you always start with source. So if you will go, for example, to the data flows on the left in the navigation, you can create the whole flow of the data from source to target. And you always start from the source, of course, because you need some information to work with. As I said, we have endpoint, which requires basic authentication to grab the data. And as soon as you create a source in Azure Data Factory, you can select what is the type of the source. And you have whatever you want in there, SAP, snowflakes, Parquet files. And because we are using endpoint, we need REST. So we can just type REST in this list, select the only option we have, and then we have configuration for it. And this is pretty simple configuration. So you provide description if you need, etc. Then you provide URL. Do I have some pointer? Yeah, thanks. So we provide here URL of the endpoint we want to connect to. Then we select authentication type. In our case, it's a basic one. And then we just provide information about this basic authentication, for example, username and password. And we fill it here. We click create, and now we have connection to our source. There are multiple options how we can connect, but as I said, we use base authentication. And as soon as we've created a source connection, we can already see how it works. So we can click this button here, data preview, click refresh, and you see in our case, my example is about currency exchanges. So we receive a lot of currencies from the API. And then we need to filter it out and find, like we need to do some transformation in our example. We will just filter it out, find the ones we need. It will be euro and US dollar, and push it to the target. So as soon as we connect it to the source and click data preview, we can see everything we are receiving from it. And you can see I have a lot of currencies in it. So my next step is transform it, just to select two ones which I need. So I click, you can see after the source there's a plus button. So I can build the whole flow here. I just click plus and I can select whatever I want to do with the data I have. For example, I need to filter it out because I only need 2 currencies. So I select filter, and then that's where I need some kind of code to write. But in comparison with cron jobs, I'm not writing the whole code on a Python or whatever, PHP. I'm just writing here what I want to filter out. I'm putting like body.code based on the structure of my source, because it's a JSON. I know exactly how the path looks. So I'll just put here body.code equals Canada or USD or Swiss franc. It can be euro. So I'm just kind of selecting here the currencies I need from the list I received. And again, I can click data preview, click refresh, and I see how the data transformed. So I had source with a lot of currencies, but then I wrote this simple filtering. Where is this one? And now when I click preview, I can see that all my currencies were filtered out. I only have the ones I need. But data transformation in cron jobs or Azure Data Factory, it's not only about like filtering out the data. It's also, for example, can be that we need to change something with this in this data, rename columns or maybe rename content even. So for this we also have, we click plus, so we can build as long as data flow as we want, but we click plus and, for example, select. And in this case, select here allows us, for example, to rename columns we have. So I just put here select and then just change the name, for example, of the columns. I had body code, renamed it to C. Body price to euro, renamed it to P. Click preview, and I can see now my JSON, my like final result changed. So I have C, USD, whatever, P, and this is the price of currency. So if I'll return slightly back, come on. That's what we had when we just connected to the source. A lot of currencies with a lot of columns in it. and the name of the columns is code, name, and price to euro. After my transformation, I have three currencies, for example, with two columns only, which is code and price, but code is named C and price is named. And because I'm not building a complex one, I'm building a simple one. The next step I want to do is just to push the transformed data to my target. So I click plus again and select sync. With the data factory, there is always a rule. You always need the sync in the end, so you cannot create a data factory with a data flow without the target. So as soon as I selected sync, I can set it up also, so I can select type of the sync, and because it's also endpoint for me, I'm selecting REST. And this is a bit different one because we have OAuth 2 for the target. So I just set it up here, and you can see it's a bit different. So I selected OAuth 2. Now I have token endpoint, client ID, client secret, and a scope I need to provide to receive a token. As soon as I enter this data, I can again click data preview, refresh, and it will push all the data. So it will start from the source, from the beginning, go through the whole flow, and push the data in the end. And also I can see the result in the preview here. And now I have a data flow. But the problem with the data flow is not the complete factory. The main thing in Azure Data Factory to create the complete application here, it's a pipeline. So now we need to create a pipeline which will reuse our data flow. Also pretty simple. I think people who worked with it, they already familiar with how it works. So in activities we can select data flow because we've created one. It will provide us ability to select the data flow we created. And of course later we can even extend it. We can combine data flows. We can combine pipelines. So I've added our data flow, but I can add another one here, and I can connect them to each other. And also I can connect it based on the success. If it was successful, like a green thing here, or if it failed. If it failed, I also can rerun it or do something else. So I have all these options in my pipeline. And you can see I just have one data flow. I can see the name. I can integrate it with some runtime. And now my data flow will work. The only thing I need to do, I can manually run it, debug, or I want to do it once per day. So I need also to set up how often I want to run a data flow. Yeah, I can see if it successfully worked. But then I go to the left menu, there is item called triggers. That's where I can just select how often I want my data flow to data factory to work. And you can see it's for the cron jobs, you usually manually set it up. You have these stars and you put like one star is a minute, second star is like hour. And here I can literally in the interface select it. Like every 24 hours, just run my pipeline, start from this date and I can even provide like end date if I want to stop and like to work just for some period of time and then stop. All is done via graphical interface, which is pretty cool. Now we have a data flow. It completely works, and I showed you a simple one on the screenshots, but you can really build something like this. So we have multiple sources, they do something all together and then pushes the data. You can build something like this. When you have one Azure Data Factory, but you have multiple tasks happening there in parallel. You can see this huge one is one data flow, this one another data flow, but they will work together, and as soon as it's triggered, they both start to work. And that's time for the conclusion. And you can see here in the conclusion, I especially highlighted con, because there's one bad thing about data factories. Let's take an example, real example we have in our project. So we have a function, data function. It runs once per day. It has 3 simple mutations. One source, 3 mutations. It filters out currencies. It's also about currencies. It filters out currencies. It selects, it renames a couple of columns. So source is 100 kilobytes, and the target receives, we push to target 5 kilobytes. Pretty simple one. And the problem is the price. You can see here 87 euros 82 cents per month for the cron jobs, for the cron job, which runs once a day, receives 100 kilobytes and pushes 5 somewhere. Pretty simple application. And again, price 87 euro per month. And if we will just write a simple PHP code doing the same stuff, put it in a cron job and run once per day, it will be $2 per month, maybe 3 for the very cheap hosting. So this is the biggest problem and the biggest issue with Data Factory. But from other point of view, you have a really simple interface to build it. You have Microsoft, you have scalability. So this is the biggest problem. We pay like 40 times more than we can pay if we use just a simple hosting. But as I said, you have a really scalable, complex solution, which is pricey, but again, it's much easier to build, much easier to control, much easier to monitor and check logs. And maybe price is not so bad, because if you are a big company, like a bank I work for, you don't really care about the price. Questions?